The Canon R6 Mark III is the true embodiment of what it means to be a hybrid camera, with significant improvements in both photo and video over its predecessor, the R6 Mark II. Let me show you how to put it together. What I'm going to do is take my housing, lay it down face on my counter mat here, lift the locking levers of all three lid snaps. Once I have those loose, I can lift them up and over the hooks. Take my back, set it to the side. You notice that you have on the inside direct drive controls a USB-C plug as well as a direct lead to the hot shoe. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that my controls are out of the way and oriented properly. I'm going to remove the camera mount, and I'm going to align the screw in the camera mount with the tripod hole in the bottom of the camera. Using a flat-headed screwdriver, I'm going to tighten that up. Make sure it's nice and snug. Any movement between these two pieces will result in misalignment. I've made sure I have a full battery and an empty SD card. Now I can open the compartment on the left side of the camera, and that'll expose the port for the USB-C. I'll take the USB-C cord and I'll plug it into that port. After I've installed the USB-C cord, I can take the hot shoe and slide it into the mount on top of the camera. Do make sure that it is pressed fully forward so that the contacts make contact with the camera. Now I can align the camera mount with the camera base inside the housing. I ensure that everything's out of my way. Realign all of my controls. Before I put the back onto the front, I'm going to take an opportunity to check the sealing surface for the O-ring here. This is a compression seal, so no lubricant is required. I do want to make sure it's clean though. I'll do the same thing on the back. And now I can simply align the back onto the front. Lift my lid snaps over the hooks, reversing the order that I did to remove it, simultaneously pressing left and right. I can lock those down and then lift up to make sure that the lock engaged, and then I'll finally do that on the top of the housing. Now I can put the port on. Using the included tool, I will remove the gear sleeve retainer, set it aside. Remove the dust cap, set it aside. Remove my body cap. And today I'm going to be shooting macro, so I have the 85mm. Remove the lens cap, the back cap. Align the red line on the camera with the red line on the lens. Bayonet it into place. Set that aside. Take my port configuration. In this case, it's the 37mm plus the flat port. I'm going to make sure that all three thumb screws are backed out and not protruding to the inside diameter of the extension. I'll do the same thing on the flat port itself. Using a little bit of the included lubricant between my finger and thumb, I will apply that to the O-ring on the extension. I'm going to take an opportunity to check for debris or hair or anything that could compromise the seal. I'm going to take some of that lubricant. I'm also going to put it on the O-ring of the port base on the housing. Again, applying lubricant and checking for anything that could compromise the seal. And then I will check the sealing surfaces of the mating part here, this vertical wall on the flat port, and the vertical wall on the extension itself. You'll notice in the extension and the port base that there are three machine pockets for the corresponding thumb screws. So I'm going to align one of the three thumb screws with those pockets. Press firmly down into place till it makes contact all the way around the circumference, and now I can tighten each of the three thumb screws. This is a retaining mechanism. The seal occurred when the two pieces went together because it's a piston seal. This just keeps the two pieces from being pulled apart, so there's no need to over-tighten these thumb screws. Let's take our housing. We've already checked our O-ring and put lubricant on. Now I'm going to align again one of the three thumb screws with one of the three pockets. Just like the extension and the port went together, press those together, and now I can tighten up the three thumb screws. Now I have a fully assembled housing here with the 85mm. Last step I'm going to do is I'm going to create a vacuum inside. Now, in order to create a vacuum, all we have to do is press the button on the valve, and that will release the cap on the vacuum valve itself. And it's tethered so you don't lose it. We're going to replace that cap with the barb on the pump. You'll feel it click into place. Now we can turn our attention to the hand pump. Use the hand pump to create a vacuum inside the housing. Now, the exact number that you pump the vacuum to is not as important as the fact that the needle is not dropping steadily. If that was, it would indicate that you have a compromised seal that you need to start investigating. In this case, I've chosen to go to 15, and I'm holding at 15. Now, I could let this sit, but I don't want to in this state because I would be testing the system, including the vacuum pump itself, which I will not be diving with. So I'm going to remove the barb, again, by pressing the button on the valve, replacing the cap. I always make it a habit of putting the cap in when the barb comes out. And you're going to want to let this sit for at least 15, 20, 30 minutes. Ideally, you've done this the night before and you have your system ready to go by the door on your way out. That's in a perfect world, which we don't live in often. But if you do, when you do come back to it, the most important thing is that when you rehook up the vacuum pump, that it does jump back to where you left it off. You'll lose a little bit through the hose itself, but if you went to 15, it should jump back to 15 or 10 or whatever number you chose to pump to. And then another thing is that you do want to dive with the housing under a vacuum. It doesn't hurt anything. As a matter of fact, it will reinforce all the closing mechanisms, and it's highly recommended to do so. If you find yourself using the USB-C bulkhead to charge and offload images, you will notice that you will lose vacuum through this because it is not a sealed port going past the circuit board. So you can either put the cap back on, which is a fairly safe methodology. Really, the opportunity for an issue to occur would be the port being taken off or the back being taken off. But if you want to recreate a vacuum, you just have to redo the vacuum pump just as you did before. Now, if you want to release the vacuum, you can do it by, again, pressing the button on the valve and removing the cap, reinserting the vacuum pump itself, and there's a release button on the vacuum. Now, when you push it, just make sure you push it halfway. If you push it all the way, it'll re-engage. So to release the vacuum, just a half press on this will release that vacuum, and you'll be able to remove the camera. If you don't release the vacuum, you will not be able to open the housing. If you don't have access to this hand pump and you need to open the housing, you can stick a blunt object like a ballpoint pen and depress the button inside the valve, which will release the vacuum. The most important thing is that when you get in the water, you do want to make sure that the vacuum valve is replugged. And that's it. That's a fully installed R6 Mark III. If you have any questions about this process, drop us a comment down below or shoot us an email to ikelite@ikelite.com.